I'm going to talk a little bit about the specifics of that. So one sentence in the agreement says, okay, so I'm going to back up. I'm going to do it. I need to. So if you have an encounter with a police officer and you think that there was misconduct, you can file a complaint with something called the Independent Police Review Division, or IPR, and that's this section over here. They investigated, and you don't like the outcome. They said there was no misconduct, and you want a second chance to look at it again. You can appeal that to what's called a citizen review, this chunk over here. All right, and that's generally, so if an officer is rude to you, or if an officer punches you, or if an officer calls you a racial epithet, you can file a complaint, and then if you don't like the outcome, you can appeal it. There's a paragraph in this definitions section of the agreement that basically says you can't appeal if you were shot or if your loved one dies. So
say it one more time, Dan.
That if you are shot and you survive, or if your loved one dies and you don't like the outcome of the administrative investigation, you can't appeal it to the citizens. You can, even though any other kind of misconduct, you can appeal. The coalition said that we'd like to see a Fred Bryant clause. Fred Bryant was Keith Nose's father. He tried to file an appeal about the Keith Nose investigation, and he was denied by the IPR. Simply put, even if the only thing that is done to the DOJ agreement is that this paragraph is eliminated, or that sentence is eliminated, then it could still stand the city believes that there's no right to that appeal, but we as a community could organize and do something about it. But once this agreement is entered into the record, it's in force for 4 or 5 years, till the end of 2017 at least. So that could inhibit, that's why this section is called could inhibit accountability. The next thing is the internal police review board. And so this is part of the process that I skipped over before. This doesn't happen with every case. This happens in cases where there's been a sustained finding and officers found out a policy, and they're going to give them time off or fire them. Or in a shootings case or excessive force case, there's something called the police review board. And the police review board is an intern to the Bureau. It's made up of a majority of police employees. So 4 out of the 7 members who hear deadly force cases and 3 out of the 5 members who hear regular performance cases are police. And then the other 2, because one is a community member and one is the IPR director. And in a deadly force case, there's going to be a second citizen who's going to be a member of the citizen review committee I talked about a second ago. So that police review board is not open to the public. CRC hearings are open to the public. In the letter of findings, the DOJ said, curiously, a complaining civilian is not permitted to attend invitation. Right? So you were the one who was wrong, something happened to you, and they're holding a hearing to decide whether or not the officer found you out of policy, but you can't go and talk to the board that's making that decision. There's nothing in the there's nothing in the agreement that changes that. In fact, they kind of emphasize the fact that the citizen review committee members who are going to be rotated on, but who have public meetings, are not going to be able to talk about it because it's a very confidential process. The agreement also says that all, and this is the language of the agreement. There's something I'll clarify in a second, but it says that all investigations shall be completed in 180 days. So I mentioned before that earlier this month, the City Council changed the structure of our IPR. What they did was they originally had the language in there saying all investigations shall be completed in 180 days. And then people from the community pointed out that if an investigation takes 200 days, and they say, oh, officer, you're out of policy, the officer's going to go, look, but you didn't finish it in 180 days, so I guess nothing's going to happen to you, right? So the ordinance that the city just passed now says they will try to, I'm paraphrasing, they will try to finish it in 180 days. If it's not done, they just have to report back to the chief of police and the auditor why it's taking so long. And that's actually a good thing. I mean, in general, it's kind of disconcerting, I think, when we see something written in this agreement, and it's written down, and we can't change a single word of this agreement, it is written in stone. And then they start changing it, and it's like, well, is it written in stone or is it not written in stone? In this case, that's a good thing, because now the police won't have that escape valve where at 180 days, they'll get off. But the second part of that sentence says that the Citizen Review Committee has to hold their appeal hearing, where I didn't like the outcome, so I appealed the finding, in 21 days. And these are volunteers. This is 11 volunteer community members. And right now, it takes them 63 days to do this. And Mr. Terrell will tell you, as an appeals process advisor, it's a very complicated thing. You got to read these files, you got to explain to the community member who's appealing how it works. And they're volunteers, and they come and have a meeting once a month. So to try to finish an appeal in 3 weeks is, the city council has said publicly that they think that this is not going to be possible. And they said publicly, it's the DOJ that's saying, we have to stick to this timeline. So, just saying. And then the CRC, the Citizen Review Committee. Okay, so if you were given the facts of the case and you were asked, okay, was this officer out of policy or not? Generally, I think you would understand if somebody said, well, here's the evidence, how much is there enough evidence to say the officer violated policy? Yes or no? That would be called a preponderance of the evidence. That would be an easy standard to understand and work with and pretty logical. Instead, the way our city code is written is that a reasonable person could make the finding regarding the complaint in light of the evidence, whether or not it was the finding. So it's called the reasonable person standard. And it basically means that you can't substitute your judgment for the police commander who made the finding in the first place. You just have to say, could a person come to this finding, even though I don't think I can come to that finding? That definition is stuck in the definition section of the DOJ agreement. So again, if the community wanted to change that to something that's less deferential to the police and say, we'd like the standard to be a preponderance of the evidence, we are not going to be able to do that for 5 years